These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
He may be a liberal, but oh man, I feel bad for the guy. I really do. We're going to talk about the absolute embarrassment that is Mark Carney's cabinet. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, and comment your thoughts down below. Bonus points if you share the video. Also, Mark Carney gave a pretty darn bizarre speech today. Wowza. And speaking of Mark Carney's cabinet, there is another Liberal minister who was found to have engaged in multiple cases of workplace harassment. We're going to talk about that and so much more today on Over Opinionated.
Speaker, we learned some disturbing news today. A Liberal cabinet minister from Manitoba has been found to have a serious history of harassment and unprofessional conduct in the workplace. A former subordinate said they endured humiliation, intimidation, and months of psychological warfare by this minister in her previous job. This is obviously completely unacceptable and unworthy of a minister of the Crown. The Prime Minister decides who sits around the cabinet table. So was he unaware of this disturbing history of workplace abuse, or did he know and just didn't care?
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is obviously committed to fostering a healthy work environment for everyone in the workplace, characterized by collegiality and mutual respect, and that's what we have to say on the matter. Thank you.
This story has to do with Rebecca Chartrand, who actually directed Indigenous strategy at RRC Polytech in Manitoba, that is Red River College. A former college employee claimed that she was targeted, undermined, bullied, and harassed by Chartrand over a period of 8 months. And the harassment took form in threatening the employee's position, undermining her work and her management of other staff, interfering with her career, negatively impacting her reputation, increasing her workload, and imposing unreasonable deadlines, according to the complaint. And this is what caused Rebecca to start treating her employee like absolute garbage and to start terrorizing her. It was this survey right here that Rebecca had authorized to go out, which received tons of backlash. And it was about self-assessment, specifically for the Indigenous community, to determine your readiness to start post-secondary education. And so the questions that were on this were things like, you have been triggered emotionally by a crisis. How do you respond? You go out and party so you don't feel your problems. You have a plan to contact an elder in the community and have support services. Practice your self-care. You stay home and watch TV or do other distractions so that you don't think about it. Or what statement best describes your alcohol consumption per week over the last 3 months? I drink less than 15 drinks per week. More than 15 a week? I drink more than 4 drinks at one time, more than twice a week, or I don't drink alcohol. What statement best describes your consumption of DR Uggs? As of late, I use them sometimes at a party with other people. I use them throughout the day. I never use them, or I only use them when I am depressed and lonely. You may be wondering, why on earth is it that survey, yeah, it's kind of bizarre and weird and maybe inappropriate, you may say. What does that have to do with harassment in the workplace? Well, in typical narcissistic fashion, when Rebecca Chartrand's employee had criticized her on ever even publishing those comments or those questions and descriptions in the survey to begin with, that started what the former employee said was, quote, months of psychological warfare. And if you have ever had the misfortune of dealing with somebody who has a big old ego and a lot of pride and also likely narcissistic personality traits, you know that the last thing that you ever want to do is tell them no or say that you don't think that they are a god, because they will go above and beyond to make you regret the day that you were ever born. And that seems to be exactly what happened here. However, it didn't stop there, because on election night, there was actually another resident who brought forth what happened, saying, did everybody just forget about this? Because this was a really major deal, and like, why are you voting for her, basically? And Rebecca then, in a now deleted Facebook post, but don't worry, I got the receipts and I have the screenshot of it right here. She essentially accused Kyle Ross Drew, who was the original poster, of engaging in lateral violence, and then went so far as to say, if anyone has information on where this individual works or resides, please reach out publicly. Now, don't worry, though, because the spokesperson for Chartrand, now that she is a minister, said that she really regrets this post. And, you know, she deeply regrets the language and tone that she expressed, and she just unreservedly offers her apologies for the language of this post.
Why did the Liberals bring 500,000 foreign students to Canada during a massive housing shortage and while youth in Canada can't find jobs?
There is a number of points to dissect and break apart, by the way, with the upcoming answer. So I'm sorry, but I will be chiming in more than usual just to kind of lay everything out for you and completely fact check and debunk all of the nonsense this Liberal minister is about to spew.
Those figures are inaccurate. It's misinformation. This new government is hard at work to improve our immigration system, and the introduction of Bill C-2 Tuesday was an example of that. We are taking significant steps to preserve the integrity of our system while also upholding our humanitarian commitments, because we understand a well-managed immigration system is essential to a safer, stronger Canada.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
So I got those numbers from the minister's website. I went on the website and I read them. So in the middle of a housing crisis, she brought 500,000 people to Canada. These people compete with Canadians for jobs, require housing and healthcare. If her department's numbers aren't the real numbers, what are the real numbers?
Also important to note, this is from Table Salt on X. Major breaking, Canada has added approximately 110,000 people via immigration since January of 2025, but lost 20,000 jobs. Unemployment rate is up to 7% now as a result. And that figure, by the way, the 110,000, that is specific to like legal immigrants. We're not talking about temporary anything or international students. The number for that is closer to 1 million.
Mr. Speaker, let me give the opposite member a lesson on immigration and on numbers and on permits of visa. There's many applications and many individuals. We recognize that to balance our immigration and to have a good country, we need temporary and we need permanent residents. Some applicants have multiple numbers, and so therefore I would suggest that we look into those numbers a little bit more in detail. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, earlier in question period and debate, the minister accused me of misleading the House. I'd like permission to table the data I referred to that was from her website. It might help her out. I can deliver it by page if that's what she would like. It's
Consent, unfortunately, there's no consent.
No, there's no consent. That pride, that ego. See? Yeah, it's happening. Well, let's continue on a little bit more of this conversation because she says some things in here that are partially true, misleading, and very one-sided.
Capping immigration, here are the facts. They added over 500,000 more international students. They approved nearly 180,000 more temporary foreign workers. And now we have millions in our country with expired or expiring visas and no plan on how they'll leave. Their mismanagement has put pressure on housing, on healthcare, and jobs. So after missing their own targets to lower immigration and losing control of the system, why should Canadians believe them anymore?
Yeah! Newcomers, Canadians, and our country. But after 10 years of the Liberal government, the system is in chaos. Liberals ignored warnings, cut corners on application vetting, opened doors for fraud and abuse in the temporary foreign worker, refugee, and international student programs. Now, over 1 million people are here with expired visa or expiring visas, and there is still no plan to address it. Canada now has the highest population growth in the G7, and the OECD confirms that the high immigration is straining our housing, our jobs, and our healthcare.
Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, international students are vital to Canada. Just go ask any of our provinces and any of our institutions.
Partially true. International students contribute to approximately $22 billion annually. This is according to data from 2023. And provinces and schools do rely to an extent on international students due to the tuition, which is oftentimes 3 or even 4 times more expensive than if you were a Canadian going to a Canadian university or college. And they can also boost the local economy through rent, groceries, part-time jobs, that sort of thing. What isn't being said, though, is the fact that there's been a massive influx. There's over 1 million study permits that are going on, overwhelmed housing markets. There's also been a lot of exploitation involved in students by shady colleges and employers who just want them for the cheap labor and they want them for the more expensive tuition fees. And it also puts a lot of pressure on things like healthcare and transit, all of our public services, which are not at all built for the demand that we currently have. And it has also triggered a lot of fraud scandals where students were not even attending real schools.
So are our temporary foreign workers. They are essential to our agricultural center, to our fishing center, to many facets of our population. Having said that, we understand in this new government that we need a balanced system. And for that reason, we have lowered the number of permanent residents as well as temporary numbers. We understand how to balance and how to work efficiently with our system. Thank you.
No, you aren't, because your party caused the problem that we currently face. Also, in terms of temporary foreign workers, essential to agriculture and fishing, well, yeah, kind of true, but also not 100%. Yes, absolutely. There's lots of them who do seasonal farm work. Canada does not currently have enough citizens who are willing to do this type of physically demanding work, and you are also typically paid lower because of that. In 2022, as an example, 60,000 temporary foreign workers worked in agriculture alone. However, again, the system is rife with abuse and exploitation. There's lots of wage theft, unsafe working conditions, as well as a lot of housing issues for these people, and employers have no incentive to raise wages or improve working conditions when they can import cheap labor. That in turn is hurting not only the people who they're bringing in to do this line of work, but it's also hurting Canadian citizens and the value of our dollar and the value of your hard work and time spent, which overall is creating a two-tier workforce where Canadian citizens are absolutely not prioritized whatsoever because we're just too gosh darn expensive. You know, why would you pay a Canadian citizen the minimum wage when you can get away with paying somebody from overseas a much lower wage, give them essentially nothing, the worst working conditions ever in some cases, and they won't even complain about it because there's nothing they can do about it, and they're just happy to be here. And if you want to say that they're so great, we need more temporary foreign workers to do agricultural jobs, to work in our fisheries, that's not really true because statistically, only about 40% of them actually work in those industries. The remaining 60% are working at McDonald's, Tim Hortons, fast food chains. They're doing housekeeping, janitorial work, retail and warehouse, construction. That's one that is starting to increase. And also a lot of them are doing things in private and long-term care. So more and more employers are actually just abusing the system by getting into the low-wage stream. Even though something like McDonald's, Tim Hortons, you can train a Canadian to do that. There are so many young Canadians who want to work at a job like that, and they literally can't. So don't sit here and tell me that, oh, well, they're so good for our economy. No, because you're misleading everybody because that's not true. That's not where they're going. Period.
Bill C-2 passes, it would allow CSIS, police, and peace officers to demand personal info from online service providers without a warrant based only on vague suspicions of potential crime or legal breaches on any act of Parliament. Whether a Canadian uses an online service, where they use it, and when they use it is personal information, and the government has not provided a charter statement for the same. If this bill combined with Bill C-63, the government could target whatever the government deems to be spreading hateful content, and it would combine with C-63 basically to essentially form censorship Voltron. You know, the government has not indicated what policy concerns, aside from vague references to security, these provisions are needed for. These snooping provisions are a massive poison pill that shouldn't have been included in this bill. Why, once again, as they did with C-63, are the Liberals making Canadians choose between their civil liberties and their safety, and also fixing the broken immigration system that the Liberals broke themselves?
I can't even begin to explain to you the level of frustrated I had yesterday when it just kind of clicked in me. Something really snapped, and I was so mad over the fact that the Liberal government of Canada simply cannot just propose a bill that actually covers everything that needs to be covered in it, like the border protection bill. Well, if it's about protecting our borders, why is there also things in there saying that you don't need to be guilty, you don't need to be involved, just maybe suspected of doing something, or maybe will commit an offense in the future? And it's not just for immigrants, it's not just for temporary people in our country. It actually outlines in the bill that it is for all persons, all business owners. Well, that certainly doesn't sound like you're protecting our border, does it? When there's things in there, when it authorizes peace officers or public officers or a person acting under their direction to install, activate, use, maintain, monitor, and remove tracking devices, including covertly. And it can also gag tech companies from disclosing the installation of them monitoring you. And you don't have to be guilty of anything. You're not even going to be notified of it. It's just maybe you might be suspected of something. They feel like looking into you today. So now they're going to have the power, if this gets voted in, to track all of your activity, to get all of your DMs, all of your data, all of your everything. They're going to have the power under this bill to check your mail. They're going to have the power under this bill to make it so that you can't have $10,000 worth of cash on you anymore that perhaps you just want to go and give to your grandchild. No, you can't do any of those things. These bills are always laid out in such a way where the title and the premise, the beginning and the bottom, are about what it's actually supposed to be about. Because yeah, Bill C2, C3, there's good things in there about immigration. There's good things in there about foreign interference. But the middle sections of those bills are so convoluted and so immoral. And it is all about a narrative. It is all about a goal. The goal here is control and power without any consequences, without you even knowing about it. And it's not written towards, people involved in criminal activity, people involved in active investigations. No. Of course, why on earth would they make it specific when it can be vague and they can use it against the general public for your safety? Moving on to something deeply concerning that Mark Carney said today, as well as a minister of his, of whom this poor man, wow, he did not know what he was getting himself set up for. I wonder if it was maybe him who was leaving Mark Carney's office crying after meetings, like CBC reported last week.
And the message of Eid resonates in this room, across this city, and I may say it should resonate with all Canadians. It's a story that some of us hear with slightly different nomenclature, whether the prophet is called Ibrahim or Abraham, Ishmael or Isaac. The lessons and values of Eid are the same. Canada, our Canada, is a diverse country, proud home to different languages, different beliefs, different cultures. Those are differences that make us unique and make us strong.
You would think Mark Carney, as the global expert that he is, who's been around the world and understands how the world works, would also understand that there is nothing unique about what's happening here in Canada. In fact, it's happening across all Western nations. Immigration is everywhere. Actually, it's not everywhere. It only tends to happen in Western countries. Interesting, isn't that? Nonetheless, though, we're not unique for that in the slightest at all. Actually, we're actually just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, except for Poland.
We can pray differently. We can gather in different places of worship, but all of us come together. All of us must come together.
I have a feeling that Mark Carney isn't referencing other Muslims and denominations of it, or emergency situations and them being able to pray in different places of worship and pray for different things. I mean, the only time that, Muslims are technically, by the book, able to pray in other situations would be in a case of emergency, travel. Like, Muslims can pray anywhere that's clean: parks, homes, offices, airports, downtown Toronto, in some extreme circumstances, but they definitely do not agree, celebrate, or accept, going by the book, anything other than Islam. It is not pluralistic about worship. It is, all of your prayer is to be directed to Allah and Allah alone in a very specific format, and not at all to be shared or blended with any other faith practices. So to say that as a non-Muslim at a Muslim event is so unbelievably strictly forbidden for them. I'm very shocked that he would actually even say that. In fact, devout Muslims in that audience probably thought that what Mark Carney just said was incredibly offensive.
Around the values of Eid, the values of community, of generosity, and yes, of sacrifice. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
He's definitely trying to score points within the Muslim community, but in a very weird way. Like, you're praising diversity, but then you also don't understand the religion at all. It's like so unbelievably disconnected, and I'm just really, really surprised by that. I'm also just patiently waiting for what his speech is going to be at a Jewish community center or a Jewish event, given everything that's going on right now in Canada.
Does the minister know the meaning of the word intifada?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but I don't understand the relevance to...
The honourable member.
This is an estimate. This is a committee of the whole. We're not here to talk about the bill. This is a minister in charge of public safety, and I'm here to talk about the public safety of the Jewish community.
The honourable minister.
He's entitled to...
The honourable member.
Does the minister know the meaning of the word intifada?
The honourable minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member. The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is something that is quite well known. I don't plan to give you a perfect definition of it today.
The honourable member.
According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is armed rebellion. Does the minister understand that when someone in Canada is chanting to globalize the intifada, they're calling for violence? Does he understand that or not?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, the issue of anti-Semitism is something that impacts the Jewish community. And it is one where, as a government, we will address and we will...
The honourable member.
Very simple question. Does the minister agree that the call for intifada is incitement to violence, yes or no?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to respond to this particular question. The issue of the safety and security of the Jewish community is critically...
The honourable member.
Outrageous that this Liberal government, that this minister is standing here and would not even acknowledge that for 18 months the chant intifada is chanted on Canada's streets and would not recognize the basic definition of what the intifada is. I'll give you one more opportunity. Is the word intifada incitement to violence or not? One professional to another.
Well, just remind, through the chair, the honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, the safety and security of the Jewish community is incredibly important. I know they've been impacted greatly by a number of world events. My responsibility is to ensure their safety and security in Canada, and that's what I intend to do, Mr. Speaker.
Oh man, those Canadian and Muslim values, I tell ya. Yup, they go hand in hand, two peas in a pod, very uniquely, I would like to add. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment your thoughts down below, and share the video if you feel like it would be helpful for somebody else to witness as well. I'll talk to you tomorrow.